My parents shredded my $3 million bonus check for not splitting it with my cousins, but they missed one detail. The email notification pinged at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was curled up on my apartment couch, still in my work clothes, a half-eaten container of Chinese takeout balanced on my lap. The subject line made my heart skip. Q4 performance bonus, executive review complete. I stared at the screen for a full minute before clicking open. The number stared back at me like a mathematical impossibility. $3 million. $3 million. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, and looked again. Still there. Still real. Naomi Carter, the girl who used to count quarters for school lunch, had just earned a bonus that most people never see in their lifetime. The same Naomi who spent high school babysitting her cousins every weekend while her parents worked double shifts. The same one who took out student loans because family money doesn't grow on trees, according to my mother's favorite saying. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Marcus. "Girl, did you see the tech news? Your company's stock is flying. Y'all must be getting paid." I smiled, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Marcus had been my anchor through everything. The late nights in college, the unpaid internships, the years of climbing from the bottom rung of corporate America while my family treated my career like an expensive hobby. Something like that. I typed back, then immediately deleted it. The truth was, I couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. Not until I figured out how to handle what was coming next.
Because I knew my family.
I knew them like I knew the taste of struggle and the weight of expectations. The moment word got out about this bonus, my phone would explode. My parents' house would become mission control for Operation Guilt Trip Naomi into sharing. I'd seen it before on a smaller scale. When I got my first promotion, suddenly everyone needed help with rent. When I bought my Honda Civic, nothing fancy, just reliable transportation, my cousin Jasmine made jokes about how I was acting bougie while she drove her mom's beat-up Toyota. Every success became a family referendum on my character. But $3 million? This would be a fight. I closed my laptop and walked to my kitchen window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. The city lights twinkled like promises, each one representing someone chasing their dreams, building something, becoming someone. 5 years ago, I was a junior analyst working 80-hour weeks, surviving on coffee and determination. 3 years ago, I pitched a data analytics solution that saved the company $50 million. Last year, I led the team that secured our biggest client contract in company history. This bonus wasn't luck. It wasn't charity. It was earned through sleepless nights, missed family gatherings, and saying no to every distraction that tried to pull me away from my goals. Yet, I already knew what my mother would say. "We raised you to have these opportunities." What my father would add. "Family shares with family." What my cousins would chorus. "She thinks she's better than us now." The familiar knot formed in my stomach. The same one I got every Christmas when I showed up with gifts for everyone and left with empty hands and a lecture about not forgetting where I came from. The same knot from every birthday dinner where I paid the bill while my relatives made jokes about their rich cousin. I was the family ATM, the emergency contact, the one who had it figured out. But I was never the one they celebrated unless they needed something. My phone rang, jolting me from my thoughts. Mom's contact photo filled the screen. The two of us at my college graduation, both grinning wide, hope shining in our eyes. Before success became a crime in her book. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. Finally, I answered. "Hey, Mom." "Naomi, baby, I just got off the phone with Jasmine. She said she saw something online about your company giving out huge bonuses. Her friend works in finance and heard some rumors." My blood ran cold. Jasmine. Of course. My cousin who spent more time on LinkedIn stalking people than actually working. "Mom, I can't really talk about." "Oh, honey, you don't have to be modest with family. We're so proud of you. Your father and I were just saying how blessed our family is to have someone like you looking out for everyone." Looking out for everyone. There it was. "I should go, Mom. Long day tomorrow." Wait. We're having Sunday dinner this week. Everyone's coming. Aunt Rose, Uncle Marcus, all your cousins. We want to celebrate you properly. A celebration I wasn't invited to plan. A celebration where I'd be the guest of honor and the main course. I'll see if I can make it. I lied. You'll make it, she said, her voice shifting to that tone I knew too well. Not a request. A command wrapped in maternal expectations. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for an hour, just thinking. The bonus money was already burning a hole in my consciousness. I could pay off my student loans, buy a house, invest for retirement, maybe even start the nonprofit I'd always dreamed about. Or I could split it 7 ways among family members who'd never celebrated my success until it could benefit them. That's when the ideas started forming. Dangerous, maybe. Definitely necessary. I opened my laptop and started researching trust accounts, wire transfers, and the best printers in Chicago that could handle specialty paper jobs. If my family wanted to play games with my money, I'd make sure I won. Sunday came faster than I wanted. I spent the morning at Kinko's, then made a stop at Second City Bank, a small community bank I'd never used before. The teller, a sweet older woman named Mrs. Henderson, helped me open a dummy account with a $50 deposit. Just need it for a small project, I explained, pocketing the temporary checks. By the time I pulled into my parents' driveway in Roseland, my stomach was churning. Their small brick house looked exactly the same as it had my entire childhood. Same chipped paint on the front steps, same struggling rose bushes my mother refused to replace, same sense of barely keeping everything together. But today, there were extra cars in the driveway. Uncle Marcus's pickup truck, Aunt Rose's Honda, Jasmine's bright red Nissan that she definitely couldn't afford on her retail salary. The whole crew was here. I sat in my car for a moment, gripping the manila envelope in my lap. Inside was my masterpiece, a check for $3 million printed on the cheapest check stock I could find, drawn from my dummy account at Second City Bank. It looked official enough to fool anyone who wasn't a banker. The real bonus? Already wired to a trust account I'd opened under my middle and maiden names, Naomi Elizabeth Washington. Completely separate from anything my family could access or even trace back to me. I tucked my phone into my jacket pocket, hit record on the voice memo app, and walked toward the house. The moment I opened the front door, the energy hit me like a wall. Conversation stopped. Everyone turned to look at me with expressions I couldn't quite read. It wasn't the usual mix of mild interest and expectation. This was something else. Something hungrier. There she is, Mom announced, but her smile seemed forced. Our successful daughter. Dad stood up from his recliner, his expression serious. Naomi, we need to talk. Uncle Marcus cleared his throat. Girl, we hear congratulations are in order. I looked around the room. All my cousins were there. Jasmine, Deshawn, Keisha, and even little Marcus Jr., though he looked confused about why he'd been dragged into this. Aunt Rose sat on the edge of the couch, wringing her hands. What's this about? I asked, though I already knew. Jasmine couldn't contain herself. Don't act like you don't know. $3 million, Naomi? $3 million? And you weren't even going to tell us. How did you? I have my sources, Jasmine said smugly. The question is, what are you planning to do with all that money? Dad stepped forward, his voice taking on that authoritative tone he used when I was little and had broken something valuable.
Sit down, Naomi.
We're family and we need to discuss this like family. I remained standing. Discuss what, exactly? Mom jumped in, her voice sweet but with steel underneath. Honey, you know we're proud of you. But that kind of money, it's more than any one person needs. It's a blessing for the whole family. The whole family, I repeated slowly. 7 ways, Dad said bluntly. Split it 7 ways. Everyone gets about $400,000. That's still more money than most people see in their lifetime. The room fell silent. I could hear the tick of the old grandfather clock in the corner, the same one that used to keep me awake during sleepovers when I was little.
$400,000 each, I said.
So, you've already done the math. Keisha spoke up, her voice defensive. Don't act like that's not fair, Naomi. We're all struggling. Deshawn's behind on his mortgage. I've got student loans. Jasmine's trying to start her business. What business? I asked sharply. Jasmine's face reddened. I'm working on it. The point is, we're family. You wouldn't even have gotten that job if we hadn't supported you through college. I stared at her. Supported me? Jasmine, I worked 3 jobs to pay for college while babysitting your kids every weekend. That's what family does, Mom interjected. We help each other. And now it's your turn to help us. Uncle Marcus leaned forward. Look, nobody's trying to take what's yours. But that money could change all our lives. Your cousin Deshawn could save his house. Your Aunt Rose could get that surgery she needs. Little Marcus could have a college fund. They had it all figured out. Every dollar allocated, every sob story perfectly positioned. And if I say no? I asked quietly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Dad's expression hardened. Why would you say no to your own family? Because maybe, Jasmine said, her voice turning nasty, she thinks she's better than us now. Maybe she thinks because she wears fancy suits and works downtown, she doesn't need her family anymore. That's not. You only got that bonus because we raised you. Mom's voice cracked with emotion. Everything you are, everything you've accomplished, it's because of this family. Because of the values we taught you. Because of the sacrifices we made. I looked around the room at their faces. Expectant. Demanding. Entitled. These people who never asked about my dreams, my struggles, my victories unless they came with dollar signs attached. Who made jokes about my ambition until it could benefit them. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the manila envelope. You want the check? I asked, my voice eerily calm. Everyone leaned forward. I placed it on the coffee table and stepped back. There it is. Then I walked toward the door. Where are you going? Dad called after me. I turned back one last time. To see what family really means. I got to my car just as I heard the envelope tearing open, followed by shouts of triumph. Through the living room window, I watched my father hold up the check like a trophy while my mother clapped her hands together in prayer. Then I watched Jasmine grab it and rip it into pieces with righteous fury, screaming something about teaching me a lesson about family loyalty. I sat in my car, engine running, and smiled as I watched them celebrate destroying $3 million that never existed. Phase 1 was complete. I drove to Millennium Park and sat on a bench overlooking the lake, finally allowing myself to breathe. My phone was buzzing nonstop, calls, texts, voicemails. I ignored them all and opened my banking app instead. There it was, beautiful and untouchable, $3 million in the Naomi Elizabeth Washington Trust account. 3 days earlier, when I'd first suspected what my family would do, I'd called my financial advisor, Jennifer Kim. She was a sharp Korean-American woman who'd helped me navigate investments since my first promotion. I need to protect a large sum of money, I'd told her during our emergency meeting, from people who might try to manipulate me into giving it away. Jennifer hadn't asked questions. She'd simply walked me through the process of setting up an irrevocable trust under my legal middle and maiden names, names my family never used. The trust was bulletproof, managed by a third-party firm, and completely separate from any accounts my parents had ever known about. The wire transfer had gone through on Friday, 2 full days before the family ambush. By the time I walked into that house on Sunday, every penny was already locked away where nobody could touch it. But the decoy check was just the beginning of my preparation. I pulled out my phone and stopped the voice recording I'd been running since I arrived at my parents' house. 43 minutes of crystal-clear audio of my family demanding money, threatening me, and ultimately destroying what they thought was my property. Then I opened the Photos app. During the confrontation, I'd discreetly taken pictures through the front window of my car. The images were perfect. My father holding up the fake check triumphantly, my mother praying over it, and the final shot of Jasmine tearing it to pieces with pure malice on her face. But the real treasure was the video I'd captured last week. It had started innocently enough. I'd gone to Aunt Rose's birthday dinner at my parents' house, bringing a cake and gift like always. I'd left my phone on the kitchen counter while helping with dishes, but I'd left the camera running, a habit I'd developed after too many family gatherings where people said things they later denied. What I'd captured was my family planning their intervention. She's getting too big for her britches. Jasmine's voice was clear on the recording. Somebody needs to humble her. That money could solve all our problems, Uncle Marcus had added. Every single one. If she won't share willingly, my father's voice came through clearly, we'll have to make her understand what family means. My mother's response was the one that hurt most. Naomi's always been selfish, even as a child. We just need to remind her that she wouldn't be anything without us. They hadn't been planning a celebration. They'd been planning an ambush. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Marcus, my best friend Marcus, not my uncle. Girl, where are you? Your cousin Jasmine is blowing up social media talking about how you disrespected the family and chose money over blood. What happened? I laughed, surprising myself. Marcus, what would you say if I told you my family just shredded a $3 million check? I'd say you're lying, because who keeps $3 million in check form? Someone who knew exactly what her family would do with it. There was a pause. Naomi Elizabeth Carter, what did you do? I gave them exactly what they deserved. I spent the next hour telling Marcus everything, the real bonus, the trust account, the decoy check, the recordings. By the end, he was cackling so hard I worried he might pass out. You set them up. Your own family. They set themselves up. I corrected. I just provided the rope. So, what's next? What was next had been planned just as carefully as everything else. I'd already transferred all my accounts to a new bank across town, changed my emergency contacts at work from my parents to Marcus, updated my insurance beneficiaries, even arranged to have my mail forwarded to a P.O. box. But there was more. For years, my parents had been pressuring me to co-sign on various financial obligations. A car loan here, a credit card there, a second mortgage on their house. I'd always refused, but last Christmas, they'd worn me down about one thing: adding my name to their property deed as a backup in case something happened to them. It's just for security, my mother had insisted. You're the responsible one. I'd signed, thinking it was harmless. But that signature gave me legal rights to the property. Rights I was about to exercise. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. You come back here right now and apologize to your family. Then from my mother. I can't believe you would act this way. We raised you better. Jasmine had sent 17 messages, each more unhinged than the last. The final one read, You think you're so smart, but family is forever. You'll come crawling back. I screenshotted every single message. Then I made 3 phone calls. The first was to my real estate attorney about initiating proceedings to remove my parents from the property deed they'd manipulated me into joining. The second was to a private investigator I'd researched online. I need you to verify some financial information about someone claiming student loan hardship, I told him, giving him Jasmine's details. The third call was to my company's legal department. I need to report a potential security breach involving an employee's family member accessing confidential financial information. By the time I got home that evening, I had a plan that would take months to fully execute. But every piece was in motion. My family thought they'd taught me a lesson about loyalty and family values. They had no idea the lesson was just beginning. 2 weeks later, the dominoes started falling. The first crack appeared on a Thursday morning when Jasmine called me, sobbing. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Naomi, please, I need your help, she gasped between tears. Something terrible happened. What's wrong? I asked, my voice carefully neutral. My student loan company called. They're saying I committed fraud. They want me to pay back everything immediately, with interest and penalties. It's $60,000, Naomi. $60,000. They're threatening to take me to court. I sipped my morning coffee, looking out at the Chicago skyline from my office window. That's terrible, Jasmine. What kind of fraud? They're saying I lied about my income and financial hardship. But I didn't. I maybe didn't report some things correctly. The private investigator I'd hired had been thorough. Jasmine's Instagram was full of expensive dinners, designer purses, and weekend trips to Miami, all while claiming poverty on her loan applications. Her struggling retail job was actually a management position at a high-end boutique, and she'd been getting cash payments for a side business selling counterfeit handbags. What do you want me to do about it? I asked. Can you lend me the money? Just until I figure this out?
Please, Naomi.
I know we had words, but we're family. I almost laughed. Jasmine, do you remember what you said 2 weeks ago? About me needing to be taught a lesson? Silence. I'm sorry about that. I was just upset. You know how emotions run high in our family. I do know. That's exactly why I can't help you. I hung up while she was still pleading. The second domino fell the following Monday. Deshaun called this time, his voice tight with panic. Naomi, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. What's up, cousin? Did you do something to my mortgage? I frowned, genuinely confused. What do you mean? The bank called. They're saying there's been suspicious activity on my account. Someone reported that I might be hiding assets or income. They want to review my loan terms, and they're talking about calling in my debt early. This one wasn't me, but I had a pretty good idea what had happened. When people start digging into one family member's finances, banks get nervous about the whole network. Jasmine's fraud investigation had probably triggered automatic reviews of anyone connected to her. That sounds serious, I said. What kind of assets were you hiding? I wasn't hiding anything. Well, not really. I just didn't mention the cash I make from my landscaping side business. It's not that much. How much is not that much? Maybe $1,500 a month, but that's just to help make ends meet. $1,500 unreported monthly income while claiming financial hardship for mortgage assistance. The banks definitely wouldn't like that. I can't help you with bank issues, Deshaun. You'll need to talk to a lawyer. Can you recommend one? Maybe help with a retainer? No, I said simply and hung up. By the third week, my parents were feeling the pressure. The property situation was moving faster than I'd expected. My real estate attorney, a fierce woman named Patricia Hawkins, had filed a motion to remove them from the deed based on the coercive circumstances under which I'd been added. They manipulated you into signing when you were emotionally vulnerable, she explained during our meeting. The recordings you provided show a clear pattern of financial manipulation and emotional abuse. The judge will likely rule in your favor. But the real blow came when I stopped being their financial safety net. For years, I'd been the one they called when the electric bill was too high, when the car needed repairs, when someone needed bail money. I'd never said no, just quietly transferred money and asked them not to mention it to the others. Now, when Dad called about the heating bill, I let it go to voicemail. When Mom texted about groceries, I didn't respond. When Uncle Marcus asked for help with his truck payment, I blocked his number. The fourth week brought the most satisfying call of all. Naomi. My mother's voice was small, defeated. Honey, we need to talk.
About what?
About everything. The family meeting, the check, the things we said. We've been thinking, and maybe we were too hasty. Too hasty about what? About the money situation. We realize now that we may have overreacted. I waited, letting the silence stretch. The thing is, we're having some financial difficulties right now. More than usual. And we were wondering if you might be willing to help us work something out. Work what out? Well, we know you're upset about the check situation, but that was just a misunderstanding. We thought you wanted us to have it, you know? Like a gift to the family. The audacity was breathtaking. You thought I wanted you to have $3 million? We thought you were being generous. But now we realize maybe we misread the situation. You ripped up what you thought was $3 million because you were angry I wouldn't share it. Now you want to pretend it was a misunderstanding. Families make mistakes, baby. But we can move past this. We can all sit down and figure out a way for everyone to benefit from your success. I looked out my office window at the city below, at all the people working hard to build their own dreams without family members trying to tear them down. Mom, I need you to understand something very clearly. You didn't destroy my money. You destroyed my trust. And trust, once broken, can't be taped back together like a check. But we're family. Family doesn't demand. Family doesn't threaten. Family doesn't destroy what belongs to their loved ones out of spite. I hung up and immediately called my assistant. I need you to book me a consultation with a family law attorney, I said. I want to explore options for legal separation from financial obligations to extended family members. The game was far from over. But for the first time in my adult life, I was playing to win instead of just trying not to lose. 3 months after the family meeting from hell, I was sitting in a green room at the Chicago Convention Center, adjusting my microphone and trying to calm my nerves. The Women in Tech Leadership Summit had invited me to give the closing keynote speech, and I'd accepted without really thinking through what I wanted to say. Now, with 15 minutes until showtime and 3,000 people in the audience, I knew exactly what story needed to be told. Ms. Carter, a production assistant peeked her head in. We're live streaming to about 50,000 viewers online. Are you ready? I smoothed my navy blazer and checked my notes one final time. Ready. The stage lights were blinding, but I could feel the energy of the crowd. As I walked to the podium, I spotted a familiar face in the third row, my CEO, David Chen, giving me an encouraging nod. Next to him sat our Chief Technology Officer and 2 other board members. Good evening, everyone. My name is Naomi Carter, and I want to tell you about the most expensive lesson I ever learned about success. I launched into my prepared remarks about leadership and innovation, but halfway through, I made a decision that would change everything. Let me tell you a story, I said, deviating from my script, about a woman who earned a life-changing bonus and discovered that success can be the most isolating experience of your life, especially when the people who should celebrate you are the ones trying to tear you down. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. This woman worked her way up from nothing. She was the first in her family to graduate college, the first to work in corporate America, the first to earn serious money. But instead of pride, her family felt entitlement. Instead of celebration, she faced demands. I could see people in the audience nodding, recognizing something in the story. When she earned a bonus that could change her life, her family gathered together, without her, to plan how they would divide her success among themselves. They didn't ask if she had plans for the money. They didn't consider that she'd earned it through sacrifice and hard work. They simply decided it belonged to them. My voice was steady, but I could feel the emotion underneath. When she refused to hand over her earnings, they destroyed what they thought was her bonus check. They ripped it to pieces in front of her, calling it a lesson in family values. Gasps rippled through the audience. But here's what they didn't know. That woman had learned to protect herself. The check they destroyed was fake. Her real money was safe, secured in accounts they couldn't touch. And their actions, their demands, their threats, their destruction of her property, were all recorded. I paused, letting that sink in. That woman realized something that night. Success isn't just about earning money or achieving goals. It's about having the courage to protect what you've built, even from the people who claim to love you. The applause started small but built to a roar. I could see people wiping their eyes, others nodding vigorously. Some of you might think this story is about money. It's not. It's about boundaries. It's about recognizing that toxic behavior doesn't become acceptable just because it comes from family. It's about understanding that sometimes the people who should be your biggest supporters become your biggest obstacles. When I finished the speech 20 minutes later, the standing ovation lasted so long I started to feel embarrassed. But as I walked off stage, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Free. David Chen intercepted me before I could leave. Naomi, that was incredible.
Brave. Honest.
Exactly the kind of leadership this company needs. Thank you, David. It felt good to tell the truth. Can we talk? There's something I'd like to discuss with you. An hour later, I was sitting in the hotel bar with David and the entire executive team, still buzzing from adrenaline. We've been watching your performance closely, David said. Not just your technical work, but your leadership qualities. Tonight confirmed what we already suspected. You're ready for the next level. What next level? The board is expanding. We want to offer you a seat, plus equity options that will vest over the next 5 years. The package is worth approximately $9 million. I nearly choked on my wine. $9 million. Your speech tonight will probably go viral by tomorrow. You've become the face of principled leadership in our industry. The board wants that energy, that integrity at the decision-making level. As if on cue, my phone started buzzing with notifications. The live stream was already trending on LinkedIn and Twitter. Hashtag Boundaries Over Blood was picking up steam. I looked at the messages flooding in. Women sharing their own stories of family financial manipulation, men talking about toxic dynamics in their own families, young professionals thanking me for showing them it was okay to protect their success. But buried in the notifications was a familiar name, Jasmine Carter. Her message was short. Saw your speech. We need to talk. I showed it to David, who shook his head. Don't you dare let them back in now. You've built something incredible here. He was right. In 3 months, I'd gone from being my family's ATM to being offered a board seat at a major corporation. The bonus they'd tried to steal was nothing compared to what I'd earned by standing up for myself. I blocked Jasmine's number and turned my phone face down. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. 6 months after my speech went viral, I was standing in the kitchen of my new lakeside home in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. The house was everything I'd dreamed of as a child, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water, a chef's kitchen where I actually cooked instead of surviving on takeout, and most importantly, peace. The doorbell rang, interrupting my morning coffee ritual. Through the security camera, I saw a familiar figure. My father, looking older and more tired than I remembered. I didn't open the door. Instead, I watched him stand there for 20 minutes, occasionally knocking, calling my name, and finally leaving a manila envelope on my doorstep before driving away. Inside the envelope was a handwritten letter from my mother. Naomi, we've seen what you've accomplished, and we're so proud. We know we made mistakes, but family forgives family. We're willing to put the past behind us if you are. We miss our daughter. Please come home for Christmas. Love, Mom and Dad. P.S. We still have your old room ready for you. I read it twice, then walked to my office and pulled out a file I'd been building for months. It was time to close this chapter once and for all. The letter I wrote took me 3 hours to perfect. To my former family, I received your invitation to put the past behind us. I appreciate the sentiment, but I need you to understand that what happened wasn't just a family disagreement. It was a revelation. For 32 years, I thought love meant sacrifice. I thought family meant giving until it hurt, then giving more. I thought success meant everyone else's comfort before my own. You taught me otherwise. Attached to this letter, you'll find several items of interest. First, a copy of the wire transfer receipt showing that my real $3 million bonus was safely transferred to my trust account 2 days before your family meeting. The check you destroyed with such righteous anger? Printed at Kinko's for $3.47. Second, a photo of you, Dad, holding that fake check like a trophy before Jasmine tore it to pieces. I particularly love the expression of pure greed on everyone's faces. Third, transcripts of the recorded conversations where you planned your ambush and discussed how to humble me and teach me a lesson about family loyalty. You didn't destroy my money. You destroyed the illusion that blood makes people family. Real family celebrates your wins without calculating their cut. Real family supports your dreams without demanding a return on investment. Real family doesn't gather in secret to plan how to manipulate you into sharing your success. In the 6 months since I walked away from you, I've built something extraordinary. My viral speech about toxic family dynamics has been viewed over 10 million times. I've been featured on the cover of Forbes. I serve on the board of a Fortune 500 company. The equity options for my new position are worth more than 3 times that original bonus. But more importantly, I've built real relationships. I'm surrounded by people who celebrate my success because they care about my happiness, not my bank account. I've learned what genuine support feels like. Jasmine, I hope you figured out your student loan situation. The fraud investigation wasn't my doing. Your own poor decisions led to that. But your fake hardship claims while flaunting wealth on social media? That's on you. Deshawn, I heard through mutual friends that you lost the house. I'm sorry about that, but hiding income from your mortgage company was your choice, not my responsibility. Mom and Dad, I know you're struggling without your backup plan me. But financial independence means making your own way, something you taught me by refusing to help with my college expenses because money doesn't grow on trees. I'm not writing this letter to hurt you, though I suspect it will. I'm writing it to free us both from a dynamic that was destroying me and enabling you. You want to put the past behind us? The past is what made me who I am today. A woman who knows her worth, protects her boundaries, and chooses her family based on love, not obligation. I forgive you for not knowing how to celebrate me without diminishing me. I forgive you for seeing my success as your opportunity instead of my achievement. I forgive you for choosing money over relationship. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I wish you well, I really do. But I won't be coming home for Christmas. I won't be available for financial emergencies. I won't be the family ATM anymore. I found my real family, the people who love me for who I am, not what I can provide. Thank you for teaching me that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well without the people who try to tear you down. With finality, Naomi Elizabeth Washington. Yes, I legally changed my name. Carter was never really mine anyway. P.S. I've established a scholarship fund at my alma mater for first-generation college students who demonstrate financial independence from unsupportive families. It's funded with exactly $428,571, what you calculated would be my fair share of the money you tried to steal. Every year, 7 students will receive full scholarships. I thought you'd appreciate the irony. I printed the letter on my best stationery, included copies of all the evidence, and drove to the post office to send it certified mail. That evening, I sat on my deck watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and pink. My phone was on silent, my doors were locked, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt completely, beautifully alone. Marcus called around 9. Girl, are you ready for the fallout? Because when that letter hits tomorrow... I smiled, taking a sip of wine. Let it come. I'm not that scared little girl anymore who thought she had to earn love by emptying her bank account. So, what's next? I looked out at the water, thinking about the nonprofit I was planning, the book deal my agent was negotiating, and the speaking engagements flooding in. Next, I build an empire. And this time, I'm the only one with the keys. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living so well that they realize you never needed them at all. I was finally free. When do I start? I asked David. How about Monday? I raised my glass. To boundaries. To boundaries, the table echoed. But even as we toasted, I knew my family wouldn't give up easily. The real test was still coming.